He had just collapsed in the hospital hallway. His 14-month-old daughter was in the ER with bronchitis, and a social worker was threatening to take her away. He was a veteran, penniless, betrayed by his wife, and utterly homeless with only his loyal dog, Ghost. He had nothing left to lose. As the social worker arranged an emergency motel room, a luxury car pulled up. A man in a tailored suit stepped out. He wasn't a government official. He was Mitchell Vaughn, a lawyer, and he said he had been searching for Marcus all over the city. He wasn't there to take his daughter. He was there to inform this exhausted, broken man that he had just inherited a multi-million-dollar fortune. We hope you will enjoy this story. Please support us by subscribing to the channel. The cold woke Marcus Donovan. It was not the sharp, invasive cold of the high desert mountains in Afghanistan, but a damp, penetrating chill that settled deep in his bones. He was parked at a truck stop just outside Colorado Springs, the engine of his old pickup silent. He had not run the heater for 2 days, needing to save every last drop of fuel. The cab smelled of stale coffee, baby powder, and the faint, dusty scent of dog fur. Marcus was a tall man, 38 years old, with a lean, strong frame that looked like it had been carved from hardwood. His brown hair was a little too long, sweeping over his ears, and was feathered with a distinguished silver at the temples that he had earned far too early. His face was weathered, etched with lines of hardship, but softened by a deep kindness in his eyes. He hadn't shaved in days, and a heavy dark stubble covered his jaw. He pulled his old brown leather jacket tighter over the red and navy plaid flannel shirt beneath it. A low whine came from the passenger seat. Quote, Ghost, his 5-year-old German shepherd, lifted his head. The dog was a magnificent animal, not the standard black and tan, but a rare sable gray and white, his coat thick against the early autumn frost. He was a steady, serious dog, loyal to a fault and acutely sensitive to Marcus's emotional state. He nudged his cold nose under Marcus's hand. In the extended cab, strapped into a car seat, a small figure stirred and whimpered in her sleep. Luna, 14 months old, his daughter. This was their life now. A veteran, his child, and his dog, living in a 1999 pickup truck. Luna's whimper turned into a fussy waking cry. Ba, ba. Okay, Pumpkin, I hear you, Marcus murmured, his voice rough from sleep. He reached back to fumble in the diaper bag. He found the last container of instant toddler formula. It was almost empty. The last diaper was in the visor. His wallet contained exactly $3. But today, that was supposed to change. Yesterday, after 18 months of fighting the bureaucracy of endless paperwork and humiliating examinations, the notification had finally arrived. His VA disability claim for post-traumatic stress disorder and tinnitus had been approved. More importantly, the massive retroactive payment covering the entire 18-month waiting period had been deposited into his joint account. It was enough to get them an apartment. Enough for food, for gas, for diapers. Enough to finally breathe. All right, Ghost, Marcus said, the first trace of hope in his voice in a long time. You hold the fort. I'll be right back. Ghost watched intently as Marcus slid out of the truck. The cold air hit his face. He walked across the cracked pavement toward the gas station's brightly lit convenience store, past the diesel pumps to the ATM vestibule. He slid the debit card into the slot. The machine whirred. He entered his PIN and selected withdrawal. He punched in $200. The machine paused, then displayed the message in stark red letters. Insufficient funds. Marcus stared. He must have hit the wrong button. He tried again. $100. Insufficient funds. A knot of ice formed in his stomach. He canceled the transaction and selected check balance. The screen flickered. Checking account balance, $4.17. No, he whispered. That was impossible. He had seen the email. The transfer was confirmed. The balance yesterday afternoon had been over $54,000. He stumbled back to the truck, his heart hammering against his ribs in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. Ghost sensed the change instantly, standing up on the passenger seat, his ears alert. "No, no, no!" Marcus grabbed his phone from the dash. The battery was at 11%. He frantically opened his banking app, his fingers numb and clumsy. He logged in. He stared at the transaction history. Deposit U.S. Dept of Veterans Affairs, 54th to 85 nuns, and right below it, time-stamped 2 hours later, withdrawal wire transfer to Unified Trust, 54th to 324.33. A wire transfer, not an ATM withdrawal, not a check, a deliberate authorized wire transfer that had emptied the entire account. He knew instantly who held the authorization. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. He went to his contacts and pressed the name. Valerie. It rang once, then a synthesized voice. "The number you have dialed has been disconnected or is no longer in service." The phone slipped from his grasp and hit the rubber floor mat. He just sat there, staring at the steering wheel. Valerie was gone. The truck, this truck, was in his name. The joint bank account was the only thing she had needed. Luna began to cry in earnest now, a full-throated wail of a hungry toddler. "Da-da-ba-ba!" The sound was a trigger. It threw him backward in time to 2 weeks ago in their small, cramped rental apartment. Luna had just started walking and was a tornado of new energy. She was pulling books off a low shelf, shrieking with that high-pitched sound only a 14-month-old can make. Marcus had been on the living room floor, his back against the couch, trying to ride out a PTSD spike. A construction crew down the street had dropped a steel beam, and the resulting boom had sent him straight back to Kandahar. He was breathing, focusing on the texture of the carpet, trying to stay present. Valerie had walked in, her purse in her hand. "Marcus, can you please do something about her?" she had snapped. Her voice was brittle. "I can't even hear myself think. I have a headache." He remembered looking up at her, trying to explain. "It was just a loud noise, Val. I'm okay." "It's always a loud noise," she had said, rubbing her temples. "When is that VA money coming in, Marcus? You promised. You promised things would be better when the money came in." He thought she was just stressed. He thought she was just tired. He flashed to another memory a month before that. Luna, fussy with teething, wouldn't sleep. Valerie stood over the crib, her back rigid. "Quote, 8," she'd whispered, her voice tight with resentment. She never cried this much. Now she's always moving, always needing something. Back in the truck, the fragments clicked into place. The complaints about Luna's toddler phase, the constant questions about the money. Her frustration was not about the noise or the stress. It was the impatience of someone waiting for a paycheck. She had been waiting. She had endured his nightmares, his triggers, and the burden of a high-needs child for one reason: that 18-month back payment. She hadn't run away from a difficult life. She had cashed out. This was not an escape. It was a heist, a cold, calculated plan. Luna's cries reached a frantic pitch. She was hungry, she was cold, and she was scared. Ghost whined a deep, anxious sound in his chest. He pushed his way across the bench seat and forced his heavy head onto Marcus's lap, looking up at him with profound, unwavering loyalty. He licked the back of Marcus's hand, a rough, warm anchor in the freezing cab. The touch, the simple presence of the dog, cut through the shock. Marcus looked down at Ghost, then back at his daughter in the mirror. His family, the only ones who had not abandoned him. He picked up the phone. 4:17. He looked at the gas gauge, just under a quarter tank. The panic evaporated, replaced by something else, a cold, hard resolve that settled over him like a plate of armor. He had survived IEDs in the desert. He had survived the VA. He would survive this. He put the truck in gear. The engine turned over. A rough, protesting sound. "It's okay, Lunaban," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "Daddy's here. It's okay. We're going to figure this out." He pulled out of the truck stop, driving toward a future that had, in the span of 5 minutes, become completely, terrifyingly blank. The VA regional office was a sterile block of gray concrete and tinted glass, a place Marcus had spent the last 18 months learning to dread. He pulled the truck into a spot marked Visitor, the engine sputtering as he killed the ignition. He couldn't take Ghost inside. "Okay, boy," he said, turning to the big shepherd. "Watch her. You watch Luna. I'll be fast." Ghost seemed to understand. He moved from the passenger seat to the floor, laying his head on the center console, his intelligent eyes fixed on the small, sleeping form in the car seat. Marcus cracked 2 windows, just enough for air, but not enough for a hand, and locked the doors. Every step he took toward the building felt like walking away from his own lungs. He carried Luna in his arms, her 14-month-old body warm and heavy against his chest, her head tucked into the curve of his neck. She was awake now, but quiet, her thumb in her mouth. The waiting room was a sea of gray linoleum and fluorescent lights that gave everyone a sickly pale cast. He took a number and sat. 2 hours later, his number was called. He approached the window, the thick glass separating him from the woman on the other side. She was Miss Rivas, a supporting character, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, her demeanor worn neutral by years of hearing desperate stories. "Mr. Donovan," she said, not looking up from her screen. "How can we help you?" Marcus shifted Luna, who was starting to fuss. "My designation is Marcus Donovan. I am a veteran. My VA retroactive payment was deposited yesterday. Last night, my wife absconded with the entire sum. She has departed. My daughter and I are now without a domicile. We possess nothing. I require emergency aid, a voucher, anything at all." Miss Rivas typed, her painted nails producing delicate clicking sounds on the keyboard. "I am observing your record, Mr. Donovan, and I do note the disbursement." She paused, then finally made eye contact with him, her gaze unexpressive. "Sir, our records indicate a deposit exceeding $54,000 was successfully issued to your joint account yesterday." "Yes," Marcus affirmed, his voice sounding strained, "but it has vanished." She pilfered it. "I have $4. Look." He revealed his wallet. Miss Rivas exhaled, a soft, impatient sound. "Sir, that constitutes a domestic dispute, a civil disagreement. You must file a police report. From the VA's perspective, you are not impoverished. You are a veteran who has just received a substantial financial award. I am unable to authorize an emergency voucher or bypass the established system. You are designated as compensated. I am profoundly sorry, but we are in the truck. My daughter, you need to notify the police, sir. That is the sole counsel I can offer." She was already looking past him, signaling for the subsequent individual in line. Next. Immobilized, Marcus exited into the crisp autumn atmosphere. The system had functioned flawlessly. It had identified him, processed him, and compensated him. And by doing so, it had rendered him invisible to the very support structures he now desperately needed. He re-entered the truck. The scent of Ghost, a mild solace. Luna was weeping, her need for a bottle now a hungry lament. "I understand, baby. I understand," he murmured, his own fear escalating. He drove without a definitive destination initially until he observed a sign, "Beacon of Hope Shelter." He parked, his heart pounding. He exited, this time taking Ghost on his short leash and securing Luna to his chest in her carrier. The 3 of them, a peculiar, fractured familial unit, proceeded to the entrance. A young man wearing a fleece vest emerged to greet them. He was Brian, a supporting figure, a volunteer armed with a clipboard and a somewhat uneasy smile. "Hello, man," Brian said, raising a hand. "Welcome, but I cannot permit you to enter. We merely require a bed," Marcus stated. "Just for this evening." Brian gestured towards Ghost, who was standing calmly to Marcus's left, a solid gray silhouette. "Apologies, no animals. State health regulations. It is an unyielding rule." "He is not an animal," Marcus insisted, his voice trembling. "He is family. I cannot abandon him. I comprehend." "I truly do," Brian responded, his eyes filled with a pity Marcus detested. "You may have a bed, but the canine must be taken to the county kennels. We can contact them on your behalf." Marcus looked down at Ghost. The dog had remained with him throughout the divorce, through the distressing nightmares, through the protracted, solitary nights preceding Luna's birth. He was the sole entity that had never wavered. Leaving him at a kennel felt akin to forsaking him. It was not an option. "We will discover an alternative," Marcus declared, turning away before Brian could utter another word. He drove once more, the fuel gauge needle ominously approaching the red indicator. He passed another establishment, Haven Family Center. It appeared more welcoming, more inviting. This time he left Ghost secured within the truck, promising the dog he would return promptly. He carried Luna inside. The lobby carried the aroma of cleaning agents and boiled vegetables. A woman staffing the front desk glanced up. She was Karen O'Leary, a supporting character, an older woman possessing kind eyes and a tired smile. "May I be of assistance, dear?" she inquired. "I sincerely hope so," Marcus replied, his throat constricted. "I require lodging for my daughter and myself. We have no home. Her mother has departed." Karen's gentle smile faltered. She observed Luna, then shifted her gaze back to Marcus, her expression transforming into one of professional wariness. "I see. And where is her mother currently?" "I am unaware. She absconded with all our funds." "Oh, you poor soul," Karen remarked, though she was already shaking her head. "Sir, I offer my deepest apologies. The Haven Family Center's mandate is to serve women and children. The majority of our residents are, well, they are seeking refuge from domestic circumstances. We are not equipped for single fathers." "What does that signify?" Marcus inquired, his final vestige of hope diminishing. "It pertains to safety and liability, sir. We cannot accommodate men residing within the same facility as the women and children who, well, you comprehend. But I am also fleeing. We are the ones who require protection. She is an infant. The weather is turning cold." His voice escalated, and he recognized it was counterproductive, yet he could not restrain himself. A large individual in security attire, Mr. Giles, detached himself from a nearby wall. He was a supporting character, his presence a tacit admonishment. "Sir, I must request that you moderate your tone," Karen stated, her earlier kindness replaced by resolute policy. "I can provide you with a pamphlet for the men's intake shelter downtown. However, they will be unable to house your daughter." It was a perfect bureaucratic checkmate. He was a man, thus ineligible for the family shelter. He was a father, thus ineligible for the men's shelter. He was a dog owner, thus ineligible for the pet-free shelter. He was a veteran, leading the VA to deem him not indigent. He was a man, a father, and a dog owner. And consequently, he was entirely and absolutely on his own. Mr. Giles placed a hand on his arm. "Sir, you must depart. You are causing distress to the residents." Marcus glanced at the guard's hand, then at his face. He remained silent. He turned, adjusted Luna in his arms, and exited. He returned to the truck. The sun was descending, adorning the sky with vivid, presumptuous hues of orange and purple. The temperature was plummeting rapidly. The truck's low fuel indicator illuminated, a cheerful electronic signal signifying their impending doom. He pulled into the dim periphery of a strip mall parking lot adjacent to a defunct appliance store. He deactivated the engine. This was it. This was where they would spend the night. He had failed. He rested his forehead against the steering wheel, the frigid plastic pressing into his skin. He lacked the resolve to weep. Luna had finally drifted off in her seat. A sudden, sharp rapping on the driver's side window caused him to jolt upright. Ghost erupted. A deep, resonant growl of warning emanated from his chest. His teeth were bared. Outside the window stood a man. He was older, perhaps in his late 60s. His face was cross-hatched with the marks of a difficult life beneath a disheveled tangle of gray-white beard. He wore a vintage Marine Corps field jacket, the USMC emblem on the pocket faded but unmistakable. He held his hands up, palms outward, demonstrating they were empty. "Easy there, brother," the man's voice rasped through the glass. "That's a formidable dog you possess. I just observed the child. I saw the expression on your face. You are new to this." Marcus, cautious, his hand on the door lock, lowered the window 2 inches. "Who are you?" "The name is Deacon," the man replied. He was a principal supporting character. His demeanor was stern, yet not intimidating. "And that look you're wearing, that's the 'I've exhausted all options' look. VA turned you away. How did you ascertain?" Deacon gestured towards the small, faded EOD sticker on Marcus's rear window. "Saw the sticker. Saw the child seat. The system is not designed for individuals like us, son. Particularly not those of us with dependents. They are uncertain where to categorize us." He indicated with his chin. "You cannot remain here. The authorities will escort you away before midnight." However, St. Mary's located on Platt Avenue, in the main parking lot, towards the rear. Law enforcement permits us to stay as long as we maintain a subdued presence. It is more secure than here. I have no sustenance," Marcus admitted, the words tasting like ash. "Nor fuel." "I am aware," Deacon stated. "Tomorrow, at 0800 hours, the Springs mission. They provide a hot breakfast," and he fumbled within his own worn jacket, extracting a crumpled flyer. "This is what you truly require. The food bank on Tejan. They will issue you formula and diapers. Inform them Deacon directed you there, and they will treat you with respect." Deacon's gaze drifted past Marcus to the car seat. His stern expression softened for a fleeting moment. "Keep that little one warm, Marine. EOD Army." Marcus corrected him, his voice barely above a whisper. "Same trenches, different footwear," Deacon remarked with a grim smile. He stepped back, dissolving into the shadows as if he had never been present. Marcus was left alone, the cab filled with the low rumble emanating from Ghost's chest. He examined the crumpled flyer in his hand. It was the first genuinely beneficial item he had received all day. The rear section of the St. Mary's parking lot housed a small, silent collective of shadows. Deacon had been accurate. It was a frigid sanctuary occupied by 3 other dark vehicles: a windowless van, an aged RV, and a sedan, resting low on deflated tires. No one spoke. No one disembarked. A respectful, unspoken boundary of shared desperation permeated the atmosphere. Marcus had positioned his truck with its front facing the exit, a habit retained from his deployment that he could not relinquish. It was 3 a.m. He had not slept. Life within the confines of a pickup truck cab with a 14-month-old is a uniquely challenging experience. Luna was not a placid, slumbering infant. She was a toddler. She desired to move, to crawl, to investigate. The cab, which served as their sanctuary, had transformed into her confinement. She had spent the preceding several hours in a state of fretful, agitated crying, tugging at her car seat restraints and striking the cold windows. Her cries, sharp and repetitive within the constricted space, felt like minute projectiles boring into Marcus's skull. His PTSD rendered him hypersensitive to sound, and the high-pitched wail of his own daughter felt akin to an incoming mortar shell, agitating every nerve. "I know, little girl." "I know," he murmured, his voice strained. We must remain quiet." He had attempted to offer her the crackers he had obtained from the food bank, but she had rejected them. She was cold, bored, and yearning for something warm. All right, I hear you," Marcus stated, making a decision. He delved into his pack and retrieved the small, collapsible butane stove. It was a remnant from his previous camping equipment. He also extracted a jar of mashed carrots and peas from the food bank box. He cracked open his window and the passenger window, requiring air circulation. The wind, which had escalated immediately, swept into the cab, carrying the scent of approaching snow. "Just a moment, boy," he said to Ghost. The large shepherd was shivering, yet his gaze remained fixed on Marcus, evidently trusting him. Marcus placed the stove on the floor mat, a small, precarious metal island. He clicked the igniter. A faint blue flame flickered to life with a soft hiss. He carefully balanced a small metal cup on the burner, tipped the jar of carrots into it, and added a splash of water from his canteen. The aroma of warm carrots permeated the cab, and Luna's crying subsided, replaced by an intrigued, "Ooh, yeah, that's right, pumpkin." "Food," Marcus stated, offering a tired smile. He stirred the contents with a plastic spoon. It was working. A small positive in a vast negative. Then the flame vanished. The hiss disappeared, giving way to the hollow whisper of the wind. Marcus activated the igniter. A spark, but no flame. He tried again. He lifted the butane canister and shook it. It felt light, empty, his last source of fuel. He regarded the cup. The carrots were barely warm. "No," he breathed. "Come on." He secured the lid on the cup and shook it vigorously, attempting to spread the meager warmth before presenting it back to Luna. She consumed it, but listlessly, her earlier enthusiasm gone. Once Luna had finished, Marcus leaned back, drawing a worn wool blanket over himself and Ghost. He arranged a smaller blanket over Luna in her car seat. She needed to remain strapped in. It was the sole method of preventing her from toppling off the seat should he fall asleep. The temperature within the cab was rapidly declining. He could see his breath. Luna began to fuss again, but the sound was distinct. It wasn't the irate, frustrated shriek of a bored toddler. It was a high-pitched, miserable whimper. She stilled for the first time that night, her head lolling against the side of her car seat. Marcus reached back, his fingers grazing her cheek. She felt hot. Quote, 4. He mumbled, his fatigued mind struggling to comprehend. He removed the blanket, assuming he had overheated her. Quote, 5. She whimpered, a weak, glassy-eyed protest. Quote. Ghost, who had been curled tightly on the seat, lifted his head. He emitted a low, almost silent whine from deep within his chest. He nudged his nose against Marcus's arm, then glanced toward the rear of the cab. "What is it, boy?" Marcus whispered. "I know it's cold." Ghost remained unconvinced. He whined again, more audibly this time, sniffing the air around Luna's car seat. He was agitated, but Marcus was too exhausted to perceive it. The previous few days were taking their toll. The shock of Valerie's infidelity, the bureaucratic obstacles at the VA, the rejections from the shelters, the persistent, gnawing dread. It was a burden he could no longer bear. His eyelids felt heavy as lead. He was merely resting his eyes for a solitary minute. He slumped forward, his forehead coming to rest on the cold, unyielding plastic of the steering wheel. He had fallen asleep. The world inside the truck cab fell silent, save for the whistling wind and the shudder of Marcus's breath. An hour elapsed. Then 2. The whimper from the back seat had ceased. It was this silence that finally registered with Ghost, the dog. The pack was his entire world. The alpha, Marcus, was motionless, his scent laden with stress and exhaustion. The cub, Luna, had been emitting sounds of distress. Now she was entirely silent. Ghost's acute senses, capable of detecting the subtle chemical shifts in Marcus's body preceding a PTSD episode, were now in high alert. The air within the cab felt wrong. He stood, his claws clicking on the vinyl seat, and pushed his head into the back. He nudged Luna's leg with his nose. It felt limp. He sniffed her face. The scent emanating from her was sharp, sickly, and radiated an intense, unnatural heat. He recognized this scent. It was the scent of wrongness. It was the scent of danger. He nudged her again, with more force. She did not respond. Ghost turned back to Marcus. The alpha was asleep. The pack was in peril, and the alpha was unaware. It was Ghost's responsibility to make him aware. He began with a low whine, thrusting his head forcefully under Marcus's arm. Marcus moaned in his sleep. "Go away, boy. Let me be." Ghost pulled back. This was not effective. He tried again, placing his paws on Marcus's shoulder and pushing. This time, he let out a sharp yip. Marcus merely slumped further. Ghost's anxiety escalated. The cub was too quiet. The alpha was unresponsive. He resorted to his most basic, potent instinct. A frantic, percussive bark erupted in the confined space, a sound so loud it vibrated against the glass. Marcus jolted awake, his heart pounding violently in his chest. Ghost down. What is it? He was disoriented, adrenaline coursing through him, his mind still lingering in the deserts of Afghanistan. He grabbed the dog's fur. I said, down, but Ghost ignored the command. He twisted out of Marcus's grasp, scrambled over the center console and barked again, not at Marcus but at Luna. The fog of sleep and disorientation vanished, replaced by a chilling dread. Luna. Marcus turned, fumbling in the darkness. He activated the dim yellow dome light. Luna looked pale, unnervingly still. Her lips appeared dry, and her cheeks were flushed a deep, unnatural crimson. Luna, baby. He reached back and placed his hand on her forehead. The skin felt like it was on fire. It wasn't merely warm. It was a dry, searing heat, like touching a hot plate. She was burning up from the inside out. Oh no, 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 no. He unbuckled her, lifting her limp body from the seat. She was barely responsive, her head falling back. She emitted a faint, pained moan. He glanced at the fuel gauge. The orange light was illuminated, signifying empty. He looked at Ghost. The dog was whining, staring at him, having done the only thing he knew how to do. Marcus struck the steering wheel with the heel of his hand. He had no time for anger. He had to act. The truck roared to life, a wheezing, sputtering protest against the cold ignition. Marcus couldn't afford to let it warm up. He shifted the gear lever into drive, the transmission engaging with a heavy clunk. Luna was a terrifyingly limp weight in his arms. He cradled her against his chest with his right arm, his left hand gripping the steering wheel. It was reckless. It was unsafe. But the car seat was too distant, too cold. He needed her close. He needed to feel her breathing. Hang on, baby. Hang on, he chanted. The words were a desperate prayer. Ghost was frantic. The large shepherd, sensing the panic, struggled to climb into Marcus's lap, whining, his eyes wide. No, back, Marcus commanded, his voice a sharp bark of his own. Ghost, back! The dog, startled by the tone, obeyed, retreating to the passenger seat, but he remained standing, his body trembling with anxiety. Marcus drove. He ran the stop sign at the edge of the parking lot, his tires screeching on the cold asphalt. He spotted the H symbol on a blue sign. Hospital to me. The low fuel light was a mocking amber eye on the dashboard. The truck was running on fumes. Don't you do it! Don't you dare! He growled at the dashboard. He drove by instinct, his EOD training taking over. This wasn't a drive. It was an extraction. Clear the area. Evacuate the package. His focus narrowed to the road, his hands steady despite the terror thrumming just beneath his skin. He saw the red emergency sign and swerved the truck, ignoring the ambulance-only signs, pulling directly onto the curb in front of the sliding glass doors. He killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. He looked at Ghost. I have to leave you, boy. I have to. You watch the truck. Watch the truck. Ghost emitted a pained, high-pitched sound, a protest of pure loyalty. Marcus had no time for guilt. He pushed the door open, his body aching from the cold. He sprinted into the fluorescent glare of the emergency room, clutching his daughter. Help! He yelled, the word tearing from his raw throat. My baby, she's burning up. Please help. Instantly, he was surrounded. Nurse Patel, a supporting character with sharp, efficient eyes and quick hands, was the first to reach him. Right here, sir. Triage room now. What's going on? Fever. She's 14 months. We were in the truck. It's cold. I think she just stopped crying. They took Luna from him. The separation was physical, a tearing sensation. One moment she was his, a warm, sick weight. The next she was gone, disappearing behind a blue curtain as two other nurses converged with the first. He stood alone in the middle of the waiting room, his arms empty, his body covered in the grime of the truck cab. A security guard was already approaching him, gesturing toward the entrance. Quote, Marcus lied, his mind blank. Quote, 1. The guard's expression hardened. You have to move it now or it will be towed. I can't. Before the guard could argue, Nurse Patel emerged from behind the curtain. He's with the pediatric fever. He stays. She vanished again. The guard huffed but stepped back. Marcus sank into a hard plastic chair. The next hour was a blur of antiseptic smells, the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum, and the distant muffled sounds of other people's pain. He stared at the blue curtain. His hands were shaking, a fine, uncontrollable tremor. He clasped them together, pressing them between his knees. Finally, a man in blue scrubs pushed the curtain aside. He was Dr. Reyes, a supporting character, his face tired but kind. Mr. Donovan. Marcus was on his feet instantly. Is she okay? She's stable, the doctor said, and Marcus felt his knees weaken with relief. Her fever was dangerously high, 104.5. She's severely dehydrated. We're getting fluids into her now, and we have her on a cooling blanket. The labs indicate she has a severe case of bronchitis, bordering on pneumonia. Bronchitis, but she was fine yesterday. It can happen that quickly with toddlers, especially if their immune systems are compromised, such as from exposure to cold. The doctor's kind eyes became questioning. She's going to be all right, but we are admitting her. We need to keep her on IV fluids and oxygen for at least 24 hours. Admit her? Yes. Okay, whatever you need, Marcus stammered. Dr. Reyes hesitated. He observed Marcus's worn leather jacket, his unkempt hair, and the dark circles beneath his eyes. Mr. Donovan? Where is Luna's mother? She is not with us. She departed. I understand. And where are you and Luna currently residing? Nurse Patel inquired. You stated you were in the truck. Marcus's blood ran cold. This was not a medical inquiry. It was an accusation. We are between places at the moment. We are fine. I can care for her. The doctor raised a hand. I know you can, but Luna's condition is a direct consequence of her living situation. I've already contacted our hospital social worker to speak with you and arrange for any necessary resources. She will be here shortly. The doctor offered a brief, reassuring pat on his shoulder before departing. A new kind of dread, colder and more oppressive than the fear of the fever, settled upon Marcus. 10 minutes later, a woman approached him. She was in her mid-40s, dressed in a gray pantsuit and practical shoes. This was Danielle Hoover, a significant supporting character. Her hair was neatly pulled back into a professional bun, and her expression conveyed a sense of deep, managed compassion. She held a clipboard as if it were a shield. Mr. Donovan. I am Danielle Hoover, the hospital's social services coordinator. Her voice was gentle yet firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Doctor, Reyes asked me to speak with you regarding Luna's home environment. She led him to a small, private consultation room. It was cramped, windowless, and smelled faintly of stale coffee. Please have a seat, she said. Marcus sat, feeling as though he were in an interrogation room. Mr. Donovan, I will be very direct as our time is limited, she stated, opening her folder. Luna will recover, but this is the second pediatric case of bronchitis this month linked to unstable housing. She looked him directly in the eye. Are you and your daughter homeless? The word felt like a blow. Yes. Are you staying in your truck? Marcus simply nodded, his throat too constricted to speak. Danielle Hoover sighed, a sound not of pity, but of weariness with the world. She clicked her pen. All right, here is the situation, she announced, her professional demeanor fully asserting itself. I understand this is challenging, I understand you are her father and love her, but by law, I cannot release a minor into an unsafe environment. A vehicle in early winter without heating is legally classified as an unsafe and neglectful environment. Neglectful? The word struck him. I would never neglect my daughter. I know you would not intend to, Danielle responded, her tone softening slightly. However, the outcome is the same. She is here with pneumonia because she was cold. My sole responsibility here, Mr. Donovan, is to protect Luna. So, what happens? He whispered. We have until she is medically cleared for discharge. That gives us approximately 24 hours. You need to secure a stable, verifiable, and warm address, a shelter, a relative's home, an apartment. I told you I have nothing, Marcus stated, desperation mounting. My wife took everything. The shelters will not accommodate us. One refuses my dog. The other will not take me. Danielle's face grew stern. A dog. I cannot leave him. He is family. He is in the truck right now. Danielle closed her folder with a snap that sounded as definitive as a gavel. Mr. Donovan, I must be perfectly clear because I believe you are in shock. You do not have a choice in this matter. The dog is irrelevant. The only pertinent issue is Luna's safety. If you cannot provide me with a verifiable safe address by the time she is ready for discharge, I will have no alternative. I will have to place Luna into temporary state protective custody. You cannot. I must, she affirmed, her voice unwavering. It is not a choice. It is my legal and binding obligation. You have 24 hours. She stood. I will return to check on you in the morning. You may visit Luna in the pediatric wing in about an hour. They are just settling her in. She left the room. Marcus remained seated. The small, windowless room seemed to spin. Temporary protective custody. They were going to take his daughter. He had survived IEDs. He had survived firefights. He had endured the loss of his friends, his wife's betrayal, the VA's failures, and the humiliation of shelters. But this was not a battle. It was an execution. He stumbled out of the consultation room into the bright, sterile hallway, needing air, needing to think. He pictured Luna, alone in a plastic hospital crib. He imagined Ghost, alone in the freezing truck, watching the hospital entrance, awaiting his return. He had failed them both. He reached out a hand for support against the pale green wall. The linoleum floor appeared to shift beneath his feet. He was not under fire. He was not in danger. He was being defeated by a clipboard, by policy, by a system that had no place for him. The strength that had sustained him for the past 48 hours, the adrenaline that had fueled his drive to the hospital, all evaporated simultaneously. His knees gave way. He did not faint. He collapsed. He slid down the wall, his leather jacket making a soft whooshing sound against the paint, landing in a heap on the floor, his head in his hands. He was no longer a soldier. He was no longer a father. He was simply nothing. A sound escaped his chest, a dry, ragged gasp, the sound of a man who had just lost the last thing he had left. The cold linoleum of the hospital floor was the first sensation, a hard, unforgiving reality pressing against his cheek. Then came the sounds, simultaneously amplified and distant. The squeak of a cart's wheels, a muffled announcement over the intercom, and a voice close to his ear. Mr. Donovan, sir. A firm, yet gentle hand rested on his shoulder. Marcus pushed himself up, his body feeling disconnected from his mind. He was on his hands and knees in the middle of a hospital corridor, a combat veteran, an EOD specialist who had faced death, and he was on the floor like a drunk. Danielle Hoover knelt a few feet away. The rigid mask of professionalism had slipped, replaced by an expression of profound, weary understanding. She hadn't seen a criminal or a neglectful father. She had seen a man break. "Come on," she said, her voice softer now but still commanding. She stood and helped him to his feet. He felt unsteady, his limbs heavy. Let's go back to the office." He followed her numbly, feeling like a prisoner being escorted back to his cell. She closed the door to the small consultation room and gestured for him to take the chair. He sat. The room was as small and airless as it had been 10 minutes prior. Danielle sat opposite him, not behind a desk. She took a deep breath, and as she spoke, she shed the role of gatekeeper. For a moment, she was simply a person. "I have encountered men like you before, Mr. Donovan," she said quietly. "My father served in the 101st Airborne in Vietnam in 1969. He came home, but he never truly left the jungle. He just found a new one." Marcus looked up. This was not the speech he had anticipated. "He was a good man," she continued, her gaze fixed on the folder in her lap. "A proud man, and he would have rather died than ask for help. He viewed it as weakness, so he self-medicated. He pushed us away. And the system, the VA, they just failed him. They failed us." She finally met his eyes. "You are not your father, and I am not the system that failed him. What I saw in that hallway was not neglect. It was desperation. And desperation I can work with." Marcus simply stared, his throat too tight to speak. Danielle's demeanor shifted, the professional returning, but this time as an advocate, not an adversary. "I am still bound by protocol, Mr. Donovan. I cannot and will not discharge Luna to a truck. But your collapse qualifies you as being in acute distress, and that opens a new avenue." She picked up the phone on the desk and dialed an extension. "This is Hoover and Social Services," she stated, her voice all business. "I have a pediatric intake. The father is a veteran, single parent, displaced. Yes, I am classifying him as an acute 12B. I require an emergency voucher for 2 nights, and yes, he has a K9. Marcus's head snapped up. Danielle covered the mouthpiece. "Is it a service animal?" "No, he's just Ghost." She nodded, uncovered the phone. "It's a companion animal, a non-aggressive German Shepherd. Yes, I understand that presents complications. Check with the Crossroads Inn." "They do." "Excellent. Authorize it. Bill it to the Veterans Crisis Fund." "Thank you." She hung up and jotted something on a notepad. "Mr. Donovan, I can arrange an emergency 2-night motel voucher. It is standard procedure for displaced veterans with dependents in acute crisis," she said, carefully emphasizing the official terminology. "It is not much, but it is a roof. It is warm, and it is a verifiable address." She tore off the sheet and slid it across the desk. "The Crossroads Inn. It's on the other side of town. They are expecting you and will accept your dog. You have 48 hours. A motel. A warm room. A place for Ghost." It was a lifeline so unexpected he could barely comprehend it. "Thank you," he whispered. "Don't thank me yet," Danielle said, holding up a hand. "That's not all." She paused, as if considering how to phrase the next part. "This is unusual. While you were in triage with Luna, the hospital switchboard received a call, and then another, and another. Someone has been calling every hospital in the city looking for you. By name." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Valerie?" "No, a man. He identified himself as an attorney. He stated he had been trying to locate you for weeks. He said it was an emergency." "A lawyer?" Marcus was bewildered. "I don't owe anyone money except everyone." "His name is Mitchell Vaughn," Danielle stated, reading from her notes. "From the law offices of Vaughn, Steiner, and Associates in Denver. He said he represents an estate and that you are the sole beneficiary." Marcus simply stared. It was a prank. A cruel, elaborate joke. "That's impossible. He's identified the wrong individual. I am unacquainted with any legal professionals or any estates." "He was remarkably precise," Danielle stated, her expression unwavering. "Marcus Donovan, honorable discharge, 2024. Most recent known address, the apartment you just vacated." She leaned forward, her professional demeanor restored. However, this instance felt distinct. It was the look of a tactician. "Mr. Donovan, I'm going to be entirely candid," she announced. "I have just secured you a 48-hour window. This is a temporary resolution. My assessment at this precise moment still indicates unstable housing. Luna remains under my purview. Once these 48 hours expire, we'll be back at square one. Unless, she tapped the note with her pen. This attorney, this Mr. Vaughn, you claim you possess no funds or resources. He is seeking you out, utilizing the term estate. To my interpretation, that signifies a resource, a potential answer to the question of where Luna will be housed. She rose to her feet. To be frank, Mr. Donovan, whether this discussion with Mr. Vaughn rectifies your housing status will dictate my final report. Do you comprehend my meaning? He did. She wasn't merely providing him with a voucher. She was issuing a directive. Proceed and rectify this situation. What does he want? Marcus inquired, his head swimming. He wishes to meet you. I informed Mr. Vaughn's office that you were occupied, but that I would be relocating you to the Crossroads Inn for your safety and privacy. She presented him with the voucher slip. I took the initiative to arrange a meeting with him. He indicated he would meet you there in an hour. An hour, but Luna and my truck. Luna is secure. She is situated in the pediatric wing on the 3rd floor. She is asleep. You may visit her for 5 minutes on your departure, but you cannot linger, and your canine companion is not permitted entry. Danielle proceeded to the doorway, holding it ajar. A climate-controlled room awaits you. Legal counsel is available, and your daughter anticipates your provision of a secure abode for her homecoming. Go attend to your dog, Mr. Donovan, and proceed to your appointment. Marcus stood, the voucher slip feeling like a fragile piece of paper in his unsteady grip. It conveyed a sense of urgency. And Mr. Donovan, she added as he stepped into the corridor. He turned. My father, he never accepted assistance, she revealed, her voice subdued. Do not emulate him. He offered a nod, a singular, decisive dip of his chin. He proceeded past the nurse's station, his boots making no sound on the immaculate floor. He journeyed to the pediatric ward. He stood for 5 minutes, observing Luna through the glass. She was slumbering in a small, clean cot, an oxygen tube positioned near her nose, a minuscule IV line connected to her hand. She was safe. She appeared tranquil. He tore his gaze away. He departed the hospital, the automatic doors parting with a soft hiss, releasing him from the sterile warmth into the biting chill. The truck was precisely where he had left it, a dark, silent silhouette beneath the illumination of the ambulance bay. He fumbled for his keys. As he approached, a low, anxious whine emanated from within. Subsequently, a single, heavy thump of a tail striking the seat. Marcus swung the door open. Ghost was an agitated flurry of gray fur, launching himself into his arms, nuzzling his face, whimpering and trembling. I understand, boy. I'm here. I am indeed here. Quote, 1. I abandoned you. I apologize. I am profoundly sorry. Quote, Crossroads Inn. Quote, 3. Let's hope this voucher is legitimate. He turned the key, and the engine, against all expectations, fired up. The truck's engine did not fail. It sputtered, coughed, and ran on what Marcus could only surmise was sheer optimism. Nevertheless, it conveyed them the 4 miles across town. The Crossroads Inn presented itself as a modest 2-story structure with flaking paint, a vestige of an era when highways possessed distinct identities. A flickering neon sign buzzed in the darkness, its red glow advertising vacancy. He parked the truck in a shadowed alcove at the far extremity of the lot. The fuel gauge needle was no longer merely indicative of empty. It was physically resting on the pin below the line. All right, Marcus murmured, his voice a raw sound. Final obstacle, boy. He left Ghost in the truck, a decision that felt akin to betrayal. But he had no alternative. He entered the lobby, a compact, brightly lit area that carried the aroma of industrial cleaner and stale cigarette smoke. The night attendant, a young man sporting headphones, did not look up until Marcus stood directly before him. Marcus slid the voucher from Danielle Hoover across the counter. I am here for a room for 2 nights. The attendant, a supporting character named Leo, offered him little more than a cursory glance. He accepted the paper, his eyes scanned it, and he commenced typing. A sequence of small, efficient clicks resonated through the lobby. He pushed a plastic key card and a registration form back across the counter. Room 114 is down the hall. No smoking, no parties. You have a pet. The question was delivered with the force of a projectile. Yes, a German Shepherd. He is well behaved. He is trained. Leo tapped his screen. The voucher indicates K9 approval. A $25 deposit is required. Marcus's stomach plummeted. I do not. I possess only $3. Leo sighed, visibly irritated. He typed something further. The crisis fund voucher covers the pet fee. Simply ensure he remains quiet. Relief so profound it bordered on sickening washed over Marcus. He affixed his signature to the document. Room 114 was situated on the ground floor. It was frigid. He unlocked the door, returned to the truck, and issued Ghost the silent boarding command. The dog darted from the cab, its head lowered, slipping into the room, its paws making no sound on the concrete walkway. Marcus retrieved his duffel bag and the diaper bag. He locked the truck, a futile gesture, and closed the motel room door. The sound of the deadbolt sliding into place was among the most gratifying sounds he had ever experienced. He located the thermostat on the wall. It was an antiquated beige unit. He moved the lever upwards to the heat setting. A moment later, a loud clank reverberated from the unit, followed by a gust of air and a low, steady hum. The scent of burning dust permeated the room as the heating element engaged. It was magnificent. Ghost was already surveying the confines. He sniffed the threadbare carpet, the base of the lamp, the gap beneath the door leading to the adjacent room. He completed a full reconnaissance, then returned to Marcus, seemingly satisfied. He sat, his gray and white form a perfect illustration of discipline, awaiting the subsequent directive. Quote Sac, Marcus stated. Quote, 1. He sat on the edge of the stiff polyester bedspread. He was secure. He was warm. His daughter was in a medical facility, and an attorney was en route. It was overwhelmingly much. He did not know where to commence. A sharp, solid knock sounded on the door. Marcus was on his feet before the echo had faded, his hand instinctively reaching for the empty space on his hip where his sidearm used to reside. Ghost did not emit a bark. A low, menacing rumble vibrated from deep within his chest. Marcus moved toward the door, his heart pounding erratically. He peered through the peephole. Standing within the harsh yellow illumination of the walkway was a man who did not belong in this setting. He appeared to be in his late 50s, tall with silver hair, and he was attired in an expensive dark wool overcoat over a flawlessly tailored suit. He carried a sleek brown leather briefcase. This was Mitchell Vaughn, a pivotal supporting character, his countenance marked by intelligence and a composed, professional patience. He looked, Marcus mused, like a man who had never once contemplated the cost of gasoline. Marcus opened the door, but kept the security chain engaged. The man did not retreat. He observed Marcus, his gaze encompassing the exhausted, unshaven face, the worn leather jacket, and the palpable fear. Mr. Marcus Donovan. The man's voice was steady, deep, and kind. Who is inquiring? My name is Mitchell Vaughn. We had a brief conversation through Ms. Hoover at the hospital. May I enter? I am not here to inflict harm. I am here, I sincerely hope, to provide assistance. Ghost continued to rumble, a sound resembling distant thunder. Ghost, be quiet, Marcus commanded. The sound ceased, but the dog's muscles remained taut. Marcus disengaged the chain. The door swung inward. Mitchell Vaughn stepped into the room. He did not flinch at the modest, sparse surroundings. He simply regarded Ghost, who was now standing alert between Marcus and the stranger. Quote, Vaughn commented, his voice calm. He is protective, Marcus stated, his hand resting on the dog's coat. As he rightfully should be, Vaughn replied. He placed his briefcase on the small laminate desk. "Mr. Donovan, I will be direct. You are an exceptionally challenging individual to locate." I do not understand what this pertains to," Marcus asserted, his defensiveness serving as a shield. "If I owe someone money, I do not possess it. Look at me. Observe this environment. I have nothing." "This does not concern money you owe, Mr. Donovan. This pertains to remuneration that is due to you." Vaughn opened his briefcase. He did not retrieve files. Rather, he produced a single, thick, cream-colored envelope. "I am the executor for an estate," Vaughn explained, holding out the envelope. "The estate of a gentleman named Arthur Pendleton. Are you acquainted with that name?" Marcus searched his fatigued memory. "No, I have never heard of him. Mr. Pendleton was a veteran of the Korean War. He passed away 2 weeks ago at his residence, a ranch situated on the outskirts of Colorado Springs." Vaughn paused, and in his final will and testament, he designated you, Marcus Donovan, as his sole beneficiary. Marcus emitted a laugh. It was not a sound of mirth. It was a dry, harsh bark of utter incredulity. "You have the wrong person," Marcus declared, shaking his head. "It's a mistake. I am not. I am simply a man in a motel room. I do not know any elderly gentlemen on ranches." "I assure you it is not an error," Vaughn countered. His eyes conveyed kindness, yet his assertion was insistent. "He knew you, and he left this for you." He extended the envelope. Marcus stared at it. He looked at Vaughn, searching for an ulterior motive, a hidden agenda. He perceived none. He accepted the envelope. His name was inscribed on the front in a strong, shaky, old-fashioned script. He tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of matching stationery, folded twice. He began to read. "My dear Mr. Donovan, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good riddance. I assume you won't recall me. My name is Arthur Pendleton. We crossed paths once, 5 years ago, in 2020. You were younger then, in better health. I was simply old. An early blizzard struck the pass. My old 1973 Ford truck broke down. The fuel pump failed. I was stranded. No cell service. I was an elderly man alone in a faltering vehicle, and I was frightened. Then you appeared behind me in your truck, with a dog, a gray shepherd. Perhaps it's the same one who is, I hope, reading this with you. You remained for 2 hours in that wind, Mr. Donovan. 2 hours lying on your back in the snow and slush, a headlamp illuminating your work. You repaired my fuel pump using parts from your own toolbox. Your hands were freezing. I don't know how you managed to grip the tools. When you finished, I attempted to compensate you, offering all the cash I possessed, $200. You simply shook your head. You glanced at the Marine Corps sticker on my bumper and said, "Veterans don't charge veterans. Get home safe." Then you drove away. I never forgot that act of kindness. For the past year, I've endeavored to locate you. I learned through the veteran network that you had been discharged and were engaged in a dispute with the VA. I heard the system was failing you, much as it failed me in 1954 when I returned home. I wish to offer assistance, to find you and speak with you. But this illness progresses rapidly. I'm too elderly to realize my dream. I acquired an old ranch with the intention of transforming it into a sanctuary for individuals like us, a place for work and healing. However, my time has run out. Therefore, I bequeath it all to you, Marcus. You are a soldier who understands construction. That day you did more than just fix my truck. You instilled hope in an old man. Utilize it. Construct something meaningful. Do not let the system prevail. Your friend, Arthur Pendleton. Marcus read the letter twice. His hands trembled so violently the paper rustled. He remembered the blizzard, the old green Ford, the stubborn, proud old man. Quote 1, he whispered, looking at Vaughn. Quote 2. Quote 3, Vaughn said softly. Quote 4. Marcus's world reeled. He was no longer merely tired. He was disintegrating. He looked down at his dirty, grimy hands clutching the letter. He thought of Luna in her plastic crib, a tube in her nose. My daughter. He choked out the words, thick with emotion. She's in the hospital. She has pneumonia because I couldn't keep her warm. And this man. I am aware, Mr. Donovan, Vaughn said, his voice now purely professional, though not unkind. Ms. Hoover at the hospital was very clear about your situation. That is why I am here at this motel at this hour. He stepped forward. My first duty as executor is to ensure the welfare of the beneficiary, your welfare, and by extension, your daughter's welfare. We can and we will resolve this. He reached into his briefcase and produced a wallet. He withdrew a single black credit card. This is an estate-linked card. It is now yours. It has no limit you need to be concerned about. It will not be declined. He placed it on the desk. My instructions are as follows, Vaughn said, his tone that of a commanding officer familiar with the terrain. Go to the front desk. Book this room for a week. Proceed to the all-night diner across the street and get yourself and your dog a proper meal. Get some sleep. He handed Marcus a business card. My number. I will call you at 800 hours tomorrow. I will pick you up. We will go to the hospital, and I will handle the discharge paperwork with Miss Hoover. Then we will go see about your daughter. Am I clear? Marcus could not speak. He merely nodded, accepting the card. Good, Vaughn stated. He repacked his briefcase. Get some rest, Mr. Donovan. The fight is over. He let himself out. The door clicked shut, the deadbolt sounding prominently in the silence. Marcus was alone again, just him and Ghost. The heater hummed. He looked at the letter in one hand, the black credit card in the other. He sat on the bed. Ghost, sensing the shift, the release of years of tension, moved forward and rested his heavy head on Marcus's knee. Marcus dropped the paper and the card. He buried his hands in the thick gray fur of his dog's neck. And for the first time since Valerie had left, he surrendered. He wept dry, silent, ragged sobs that convulsed his entire body. The following morning, the heat in the motel room felt like a thick, dry blanket, but to Marcus, it was a luxury. He had slept for 3 solid hours on the stiff mattress, the first truly restful sleep he'd experienced in weeks. He had utilized the estate card to purchase a hot breakfast from the diner, a new safe car seat, and 2 large bags of premium dog food, which Ghost had devoured with quiet dignity. At 0800 hours, a sharp, polite knock echoed on the door. It was Mitchell Vaughn, appearing as neat and unwrinkled as he had the previous night. This time, he wore a perfect gray suit instead of an overcoat. He drove a dark, silent Lexus sedan. Mr. Donovan, he greeted Marcus, his eyes briefly scanning the empty breakfast containers. Good, you've eaten. Quote, 8, da. Quote, 9. All right, Luna Bean. Quote, 10. Let's go home. He placed her in the new car seat, which he had installed in the back of Vaughn's pristine Lexus. Ghost, who had been instructed to remain in the motel room, was retrieved. The dog seemed to comprehend the change in circumstances, hopping into the back of the luxury sedan and settling on the floor at Luna's feet as if he belonged there. What about my truck? Marcus inquired as they departed. The old pickup appeared small and broken in the motel parking lot. I've arranged for a flatbed to retrieve it, Vaughn stated. It will be at the ranch by the time we arrive. The ranch was 20 minutes outside the city, where the urban sprawl yielded to rolling hills and an expansive sky. Vaughn turned off the main road onto a smaller paved lane, then onto a long gravel driveway marked by a simple wooden sign, Pendleton. The driveway meandered through fields of tall, dry grass. At its end, nestled in a small valley, stood the house. It was not a mansion, but a large, 2-story farmhouse constructed of gray stone and dark wood, featuring a broad wraparound porch. It appeared solid, permanent, and strong. Adjacent to it sat a substantial, newer metal workshop and an older red barn. As they pulled up, an older couple emerged from the house. This is your staff, Mr. Donovan, Vaughn said quietly. Mr. and Mrs. Watson. They managed the property for Arthur for over 30 years. Marcus exited the vehicle, holding Luna, who was gazing wide-eyed at the new surroundings. Ghost slid out after him, his nose immediately to the ground, his tail held low in cautious curiosity. Mr. Watson was a man in his late 70s, as weathered as the stone of the house, with calloused hands and a face etched with kind, reserved lines. Mrs. Watson, a woman with a gentle face and worried, compassionate eyes, wore a practical apron. "Mr. Donovan," Arthur Watson said, his voice a respectful gravel. He nodded. "Welcome to the ranch. Mr. Vaughn called ahead. We are so very sorry for your loss. Mr. Pendleton was a good man." "Thank you," Marcus replied, feeling the dishonesty of it all. He hadn't even known Arthur. Mrs. Watson's gaze was fixed on Luna. "Oh my," she whispered. "A little one." Mr. Vaughn didn't specify, he just said to prepare the nursery. "This is Luna," Marcus said. "Welcome home, Mr. Donovan," Mrs. Watson said warmly. "Please come in. We have fresh coffee and I've aired out the master bedroom for you. Please call me Marcus." "As you wish, sir," Mr. Watson responded, the title, Sir, settling on Marcus like a physical weight. Vaughn remained for another hour, outlining the essentials. The Watsons resided in a small cottage on the far side of the property. They handled the landscaping, maintenance, and the house. They would continue to do so, their salaries paid by the estate until Marcus decided otherwise. Then, with a promise to manage the unpleasantness with Valerie and the rest of the probate process, Vaughn departed. Marcus was alone. He stood in the center of the main living room. Mrs. Watson had taken Luna to the kitchen to find a cookie. Ghost was pacing. The house was beautiful, boasting high-vaulted ceilings with exposed wooden beams. The floors were polished hardwood, and windows adorned every wall. A massive floor-to-ceiling picture window offered a view overlooking the valley. It was a stunning $1-million vista, and it unsettled Marcus. There was no cover, no concealment. The ceilings were too high, the space was too open. The silence was wrong. It wasn't the silence of a cramped truck cab. It was a vast, empty, echoing silence. Ghost felt it too. His claws made a sharp clicking sound on the hardwood floors, a repetitive, irritating noise that grated on Marcus's nerves. The dog could not settle. He paced from the front door to the back door, whining softly in his throat, before returning to Marcus, nudging his hand with his nose. "I know, boy," Marcus whispered. "It's too big." He walked into the master bedroom. It was 4 times the size of the motel room. A huge, king-sized bed dominated the center. More windows. He felt exposed, like a target. He couldn't sleep here. He never would. He would have to sit with his back against a wall, watching all 3 windows and the door all night. Mrs. Watson returned, holding Luna. "Quote 2, she stated, a gentle smile gracing her lips. "Quote 3, Marcus replied. "Quote 4. He took Luna and proceeded to the nursery. It was a small, yellow-hued room. Arthur had evidently prepared it for a grandchild who never arrived. A lovely wooden crib stood against one wall. He placed Luna inside it. She at once grasped the wooden railing, attempting to pull herself upright. He shut the door, leaving it ajar just a sliver. The house's silence flooded back in, and with it came the guilt. He was standing in a palace. He was wearing clean attire. His daughter was secure in a crib, and Deacon was out there somewhere, likely by the riverbank, preparing for another frigid night. Why me? He recalled Arthur's letter. A soldier skilled in construction. He felt like a fraud, a pilferer, an impostor who had blundered into a deceased man's existence. He hadn't earned this. He hadn't constructed this. He was merely the recipient of an unprompted random act of generosity. His chest felt constricted. The walls, so distant moments ago, seemed to be drawing in. He needed to depart. "Mrs. Watson," he called out, his voice too resonant in the tranquil hallway. "I'm just going to survey the grounds." He strode out the front door into the brisk, pure air. Ghost was at his side instantly, visibly relieved to be outdoors, his paws finding purchase on dirt and grass. Marcus surveyed the outbuildings. The red barn appeared venerable, listing slightly. But the workshop, that was new. It was a considerable functional structure with metal siding. He walked toward it. A robust padlock secured the door, a key still in the lock. He turned the key, the metal cool against his fingertips, and pulled the large sliding door. The door moved with a substantial grinding rumble of metal on metal. It was a remarkably solid sound. He stepped inside. The workshop carried the aroma of motor oil, wood shavings, and cold steel. It was perfect. This was not a dwelling. It was a place of labor. Tools were arranged on orderly pegboard walls. A broad workbench extended along one side. In the center rested a metal lathe. In a corner was a welding station. This was Arthur's sanctuary. More significantly, it was defensible. Its walls were comprised of solid steel. There were no windows, save for two modest, high-set panes of frosted glass that allowed light to permeate, but were impenetrable to sight. A single main door, solid steel, capable of being barred. Its dimensions mirrored his old barracks bay. It matched the size of his EOD container. It was secure. Ghost entered. He sniffed the perimeter once. He proceeded to the corner near the workbench, circled 3 times, and settled down with a deep, satisfied exhalation. He was finally off duty. Marcus released a breath he felt he'd been holding for 5 years. He recognized his course of action. He returned to the main house. The Watsons were in the kitchen, affording him privacy. Quote. They emerged, wiping their hands. Quote. Una. Marcus stated. Quote. 2. Mrs. Watson's brow creased with bewilderment. To another room, sir? The blue room offers a pleasant vista. No, Marcus responded, gesturing out the window. To the workshop? Their polite, professional countenances could not mask their astonishment. The workshop, Mr. Watson declared, his voice toneless. Sir, it's a workshop. It's laden with tools. It's uninsulated. There's no heating, apart from that antiquated propane unit. It's acceptable, Marcus affirmed, his tone firm, admitting no dissent. It's secure. Without another word, the Watsons, exhibiting the unwavering compliance of 30 years of service, simply nodded. 10 minutes later, the wooden crib was assembled in the workshop's corner. Marcus returned to the main house and removed a mattress from a guest room, hauling it across the yard himself. He positioned it on the floor adjacent to the crib. He retrieved his rucksack, the diaper bag, and the new plush bed he had purchased for Ghost. He established his new abode. He set the mattress against the solid steel wall. He placed Luna's crib beside it. He positioned Ghost's bed on the opposite side near the sliding door, forming a perfect, compact, defensible triangle. He brought Luna in, her small, warm form emitting the scent of kitchen cookies. He gently placed her in the crib. He sat down on the mattress, his back against the wall. The chill from the concrete floor seeped through, but it was a tangible, solid sensation. Ghost was already asleep at his feet. Marcus surveyed the dim, quiet space, the lingering scent of oil, the glint of steel, the sounds of his daughter's breathing. He was not an impostor here. He was not the lord of a manor. He was a soldier in his barracks, guarding his family. And for the very first time since his return from the war, Marcus Donovan felt secure. Life within the workshop developed a rhythm. It was a rhythm of cool concrete, warm coffee, and the scent of steel. 4 days had elapsed since Marcus, Luna, and Ghost had relocated to the metal structure. 4 days since he had politely, yet resolutely, declined Mrs. Watson's offers to prepare the main house. The Watsons, for their part, had adapted with the stoic resilience characteristic of individuals who have served a single, unconventional master for 3 decades. They did not comprehend, but they complied. Mrs. Watson, a petite, kind woman whose face bore the etchings of gentle concern, would arrive at the workshop door thrice daily with a tray. She would bring hot, nourishing sustenance for Marcus, pureed vegetables and fruit for Luna, and following a discreet suggestion from Marcus, a small portion of beef scraps for Ghost. "It truly isn't right, sir," she had stated, her hands twisting her apron as she observed the mattress on the floor. "That grand house, all those unoccupied warm beds." "This arrangement is superior for me, Mrs. Watson," Marcus had responded gently. "It's more tranquil." She failed to grasp that the vast echoing stillness of the main house was more deafening than any detonation. Here in the workshop the sounds were authentic. The hum of the propane heater, the metallic rasp of a wrench as he absently maintained it, Luna's soft, contented respiration from her crib, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of Ghost's tail against the floor upon seeing her. Here, he had a single, robust steel door that slid along a track. He possessed no picture windows. He could position himself with his back to a wall and observe the sole entry point. Here, he could finally exhale. He sat on the floor, his back against the workbench, patiently demonstrating to Luna how to stack 2 wooden blocks. She was 14 months old and far more inclined to place them in her mouth. Ghost lay at the entrance, a 90-pound sentinel of gray and white, his body relaxed, yet his head alert, his ears passively registering the sounds of the ranch. Suddenly, the dog's head perked up, his ears swiveling forward. A low, almost imperceptible growl began in his chest. Marcus was on his feet before the sound had even registered in his own ears. Quote, Ghost did not bark. He simply stared at the driveway, his body rigid. Then Marcus heard it, the sound of tires on gravel, moving at excessive speed. This was not Mr. Watson's slow, steady pickup. This was an unfamiliar engine, high-pitched and aggressive. A sleek black rental sedan, a vehicle entirely unsuited for a gravel ranch road, slid to a halt a few feet from the workshop door, kicking up a cloud of dust. Marcus instinctively reached down and scooped up Luna, holding her on his hip. She immediately buried her face in his neck, startled by the abrupt motion. "Stay," he commanded Ghost. The dog held his post at the door, an unmoving, solid statue. The car door opened. A woman emerged. It was Valerie, but not the Valerie he remembered. The weary, frustrated woman in yoga pants and a messy bun was gone. This Valerie sported newly blonde, salon-cut hair in a sharp, expensive-looking bob. She wore tight designer jeans, high-heeled boots already sinking into the dirt, and a vibrant red jacket that appeared to cost more than his old truck. She concealed her eyes behind a pair of oversized black sunglasses. She seemed like someone performing a role. She stood beside the car, her head turning, taking in the main house, the barn, the sheer expanse of the property. A look of stunned, avaricious calculation flashed across her face before she spotted him standing in the workshop's shadows. Quote, she said, her voice a brittle, foreign sound. She strutted toward him, her heels punctuating the dirt with angry thuds. Quote 3. Marcus held his ground in the doorway. He did not move. Quote 4. His voice was cold, flat. It was the tone he used for EOD briefings. It was not the voice of the broken man she had abandoned at the truck stop. This absence of fear, this complete composure, clearly unsettled her. Quote 5. She scoffed, pushing her sunglasses atop her head. Her eyes were hard. Quote, she took a step closer, her voice descending into a venomous, disbelieving hiss. Quote 7-7. She jabbed a finger at him. Quote, the sheer, staggering audacity of her accusation almost prompted Marcus to laugh. She had absconded with his entire disability payout, abandoned him and their daughter to perish, and had now reappeared to accuse him of impropriety. Quote 9. He stated simply. Quote 10. Quote 11. She shrieked, the sound reverberating off the metal structure. Quote 12. Quote 13. Marcus replied. Quote 14. Valerie's visage contorted. The facade of affluence began to crumble, revealing the raw, desperate avarice beneath. She perceived the bulwark of his composure and realized she held no sway over him. Thus she resorted to her sole weapon. Her gaze flickered to the small dark-haired toddler clinging to his neck. "Well," Valerie stated, her voice assuming an oily, disingenuous quality, "it is of no consequence. I am her mother. I will not permit you to keep my daughter from me or from her inheritance." "You don't have a daughter," Marcus stated, his voice lowering to a menacing pitch. "You ceased being her mother the moment you abandoned her in a refrigerated truck." "A judge will not perceive it that way," she retorted sharply, her confidence reasserting itself. She had identified her argument. They will see a devoted, stable mother concerned for her child's well-being. And they will witness this. She gestured broadly towards the workshop, an unwell, unstable veteran afflicted with PTSD, residing in a garage with a child. "You are unsuitable, Marcus. They will grant me complete custody, and you will be obligated to provide child support for the remainder of your life. A substantial amount." It was a disturbingly credible threat. And then, she intensified her assault. "Give her to me," Valerie demanded. "I am taking her." She lunged forward, not with maternal affection, but like someone seizing a winning lottery ticket. Her hands became talons, reaching for Luna. Luna, who had been observing this peculiar vocal woman with wide, frightened eyes, now shrieked. It was a sound of utter terror. She hid her face in Marcus's flannel shirt, her small hands clenching his collar with such force that her knuckles turned white. "No!" Marcus roared, recoiling and twisting his body to shield Luna. "Stay back, Valerie. You will not touch her." He prepared for a confrontation, but it was unnecessary. Ghost intervened. He had been quiescent, a slate-colored shadow by the entryway. He had been observing. The instant Valerie lunged, he was no longer a mere shadow. He was an impenetrable barrier. He did not charge. He did not leap. He simply moved with astonishing swiftness, positioning himself directly between Valerie and Marcus. He offered no growl. He produced no bark. Valerie halted abruptly. She was mere inches from him. Ghost remained motionless. His entire physique was a coil of pure, controlled musculature. He was fixing her with his gaze, his dark eyes devoid of any discernible emotion. And then, in a gesture far more chilling than any vocalization, he slowly, deliberately lifted the left side of his upper lip sufficiently to reveal the elongated white canine tooth beneath. It conveyed a silent, deadly ultimatum. The sole sounds were the wind, Luna's high-pitched cries of terror, and Valerie's own sudden, sharp inhale. She retreated a step, then another. "Call him off," she stammered, her face ashen. "He will not move, Valerie," Marcus replied, his voice perfectly composed. He continued to soothe Luna, stroking her back. He felt secure within his sanctuary. "And neither shall I." He regarded the woman who had irrevocably shattered his existence. She was a bully, and she had just encountered an insurmountable force. With his free hand, Marcus reached into the breast pocket of his shirt. He withdrew a small, rigid white business card. He extended it towards her. "You will no longer engage with me," he declared. "From this point forward, you will communicate with him." Valerie stared at the card as if it were an offensive weapon. "Mitchell Vaughan," Marcus said, enunciating the name. "Vaughan, Steiner, and Associates. He is my attorney. He is managing all matters." The transfer of authority was absolute. He was not shouting. He was not issuing threats. He was delegating. He employed the very system of finances and legal counsel that she had attempted to wield against him. Valerie's face, a tableau of fury, bewilderment, and humiliation, served as her final declaration. She snatched the card from his grasp, crushing it. Quote, 2. She spat, her voice a pathetic echo of her earlier bravado. Quote, 3. Quote, 4, Marcus asserted, his eyes unwavering. Quote. Valerie held his gaze for another moment. She recognized the man she had abandoned, but he was no longer present. In his stead stood someone more cold, someone harder, someone she could not overcome. She turned, her heels digging into the loose earth, and scrambled back towards her rented vehicle. She engaged the reverse gear, sending gravel flying, and accelerated down the long driveway, leaving a wake of dust behind her. Marcus remained standing in the doorway of his workshop for an extended period. The adrenaline subsided, leaving him trembling. Luna's cries diminished to faint, hiccuping sobs. "Duh! I've got you, pumpkin," he whispered, planting a kiss on her head. "I have you. You are safe." Ghost finally relaxed. The lip retracted. The rigid tension dissipated from his body. He emitted a deep exhalation, his breath misting in the cool air. He turned and pressed his head firmly against Marcus's leg, a tangible, comforting presence. Marcus reached down and buried his free hand in the thick gray fur. Quote 9. He murmured. Quote 10. The stronghold had endured. The encounter with Valerie, though distressing, had addressed a significant issue. The threat was no longer an undefined apprehension. It was a known entity, and Mitchell Vaughn was addressing it. However, as the adrenaline ebbed, a different sensation emerged. Marcus was sleeping, yet he found no rest. The workshop served as his sanctuary, but at night, within the profound, absolute stillness of the ranch, his mind refused to cease its activity. He would lie on the mattress, the unyielding steel wall behind him, Luna's gentle breathing audible from her crib nearby, and Ghost's heavy, rhythmic sighs at his feet. They were secure. They were warm. They were nourished. And herein lay the problem. His guilt possessed a name. It was Deacon. Every time Marcus closed his eyes, he saw the face of the older veteran, etched with the signs of a difficult life. He observed the faded USMC field jacket. He recollected Deacon's benevolence, a straightforward, unpretentious act of guiding a fellow soldier. Deacon was still out there. He remained exposed to the elements. He was still navigating the bureaucracy that Marcus, through sheer fortune, had circumvented. This was the survivor's guilt that had plagued him during his service, but amplified. He had not survived an improvised explosive device. He had survived destitution. And it felt equally capricious and undeserved. He considered himself an imposter, a man residing in a deceased individual's workshop, a fraud awaiting exposure. He understood he could not remain in the workshop indefinitely. He was not merely seeking refuge from the expansive areas of the house. He was evading the obligations that accompanied it. On the fifth morning, compelled by this persistent, gnawing disquiet, he reached a resolution. He waited for Mrs. Watson to arrive with the breakfast tray. "Mrs. Watson," he stated, presenting her with his empty coffee mug. I need to go through Mr. Pendleton's office today." A look of profound relief spread across her kind countenance. "Oh, yes, sir, certainly. It is precisely as he left it in the main house, at the top of the stairs. We have not altered anything, merely dusted." He bundled Luna securely and transported her to the main residence. He assembled her portable playpen in the vast, resonant living room, a space he still found disquieting. Ghost, sensing Marcus's apprehension, remained close to the playpen, his presence a quiet, gray sentinel. Quote 2. Marcus murmured. He ascended the stairs, his boots echoing on the polished hardwood. Arthur's office was situated at the end of the corridor. It was the sole room he had not yet entered. He pushed the door open. It swung inward with a soft, well-lubricated sound. It was a man's study. It carried the scent of aged paper, leather, and pipe tobacco. A substantial dark wood desk was positioned to face the window. The walls were adorned not with books, but with binders, dozens of them, all meticulously labeled. Marcus traced his finger along the spines. Ranch maintenance, cattle breeding, 1980-1990 tax records. Then he noticed it. A solitary, thick, leather-bound binder that did not conform to the others. The label on its spine had been inscribed by hand in Arthur's wavering script. The Pendleton Project. Do not discard. His heart emitted a peculiar heavy thud. He withdrew the binder from the shelf. He settled into Arthur's former leather chair. It creaked in protest under his weight. He opened the cover. It was not a business proposal. It was a vision. The binder was filled with sketches, handwritten annotations, and newspaper clippings. The initial page displayed a rudimentary hand-drawn map of the ranch. However, the auxiliary structures were depicted differently. The old red barn was designated as intake kennels. The fields were labeled Training Area 1 Obedience. Marcus turned the page. He saw conceptual drawings of kennels. He observed lists of canine breeds, including shepherds, labs, and rescues only. He turned another page and discovered the mission statement, penned on a yellow legal pad dated 1998. Quote found, Arthur had written. Quote 4. Marcus's hands trembled. He continued reading. Arthur had envisioned a facility where homeless veterans could reside and learn to train homeless shelter dogs, not merely as companions, but as service animals, as collaborators. A soldier requires a mission, Arthur had inscribed on the final page. A dog needs a job. It is the same. They save each other. This is the only rational path. It was an animal therapy center, a sanctuary for individuals like himself, a refuge for men such as Deacon. Arthur's letter from Chapter 6 resonated in his mind. I am too advanced in years to construct my dream. I entrust it to you, a soldier who possesses the knowledge to build this. This was his intended meaning. The guilt that had weighed heavily on his chest was suddenly transmuted. It was no longer guilt. It was impetus. He was not an imposter. He was an heir who had just received his directives. He closed the binder. He lifted Luna from the playpen, secured Ghost's leash, and proceeded directly to the old ranch truck Arthur had owned, the 1973 Ford that had initiated everything. Mr. Watson had it operational, as part of the estate's upkeep. It was his now. It felt appropriate. He motored back to the city, returning to the world he had just departed. He drove past the VA, past the shelters. He visited the locations Deacon had indicated. He checked the church parking lot. He investigated the park adjacent to the river. He finally located him standing in the same queue at the Springs Mission Food Bank where Marcus would have been had it not been for a deceased man's gratitude. Deacon appeared unchanged. A gray beard, weary eyes, a Marine Corps jacket. He was leaning against the brick wall, awaiting his turn. Marcus parked the old Ford, an antique vehicle, yet clean and well-maintained. He alighted. Ghost, his leash, came with him. Deacon saw him. The old man's eyes narrowed. He scrutinized Marcus from head to toe. He noted the clean attire. He observed the well-nourished canine companion. He recognized the man who had evidently succeeded. Marcus approached, halting a short distance away. Quote, he said. Quote 1. Deacon rasped, remaining stationary against the wall. Quote 2. The suspicion was palpable, the words laced with sharpness. It elicited precisely the reaction Marcus had anticipated. Quote 3. Marcus stated. Quote 4. Quote 5. Deacon scoffed. Quote 6. Quote 7. Marcus reiterated. Quote 8. Quote 9. Quote 10. Marcus replied. Quote 11. Deacon remained silent for a considerable period, his gaze fixed on Marcus's face. A job? You? What for? Do you require a bodyguard? Someone to polish your new boots? I need a manager, Marcus declared, his voice quiet yet intense, cutting through the street's cacophony. I've recently inherited a ranch and a mission. The individual who bequeathed it to me wished to establish a sanctuary for veterans, a center for training shelter dogs as service animals. I intend to bring it to fruition. I know how to erect the structures, Marcus explained, taking a step closer. But I'm unfamiliar with this realm. Not the genuine aspects, not the streets, not the system you've navigated for years. I require someone who understands the men for whom I'm building this sanctuary. Someone who comprehends the reality of their experiences. Someone acquainted with the streets. Deacon stared at him, his hardened, cynical expression faltering for the first time. I don't need an employee, Deacon, Marcus continued. I require a partner. I need your assistance in constructing this. I need you to administer it. Marcus reached into his pocket. He produced not cash, but 2 items. The first was a brand new, still-boxed burner phone. So I can reach you? He placed it on the wall beside Deacon. The second item was a key. It was old, stamped with Ford, and attached to a simple metal ring. My old pickup, the one that served as my home. It's parked at the ranch. It's yours. It runs, and it's better than walking. He laid the key next to the phone. Deacon examined the items. His gaze shifted to Ghost, who sat patiently. He then returned his attention to Marcus. He remained silent. I will not implore you, Marcus said, his voice even, and I will not rescue you. You don't need saving. You need a mission. He stepped back. The ranch is 20 miles north. The address is in a note within the phone's packaging. I'll be in the workshop. The door is open. He turned and began to walk away. Hey, Donovan, Deacon's voice called out. Quote, 6. Marcus stopped and looked back. Quote, 7. Deacon inquired. Quote, 8. Quote, 9. Marcus replied. Quote, 10. Marcus turned and walked back to his truck, Ghost trotting beside him. He did not look back to ascertain if Deacon had retrieved the phone. He simply drove away, leaving the choice and the key in the old Marine's possession. 18 months later, the ranch was transformed. The atmosphere had changed. The silence that had once exacerbated Marcus's PTSD had dissipated, supplanted by the sounds of labor and life. The distant echoes of disciplined commands, the occasional joyous bark of a dog undergoing training, the low rumble of Mr. Watson's tractor. The dilapidated, sagging red barn was no more. In its stead stood a long, professional kennel facility, both clean and modern. The primary farmhouse, which Marcus had never occupied, now served as the official administrative hub for the Pendleton K-9 Corps. However, the workshop remained Marcus's home. It was a bright, cool Saturday in April. The snow had receded, and the Colorado sun shone intensely. Today marked the inaugural graduation ceremony. A sharp, authoritative whistle pierced the air. It was not a sound of alarm, but a call to order. Quote 11. That voice did not belong to the desperate, bearded individual Marcus had encountered in a parking lot. It was Deacon's voice. The transformation was profound. The old Marine Corps jacket was gone, replaced by a crisp black polo shirt adorned with the Pendleton K-9 Corps logo embroidered on the chest. He was clean-shaven, his salt and pepper hair cut short and neat. He was lean, robust, and moved with a purpose that was almost frightening in its intensity. He was not a man who had been rescued. He was a man who had returned to work. He was the training supervisor. He stood on a small, elevated platform, a clipboard in hand, surveying the 5 men arranged in a somewhat disheveled line on the grass. They constituted the first graduating class. A modest gathering of approximately 20 individuals, comprising local supporters, Mitchell Vaughn, and a few family members, occupied folding chairs. In the front row, holding a program she could not yet read, sat a young woman with a professional, proud smile, Danielle Hoover. Her capacity as a hospital social worker had concluded the day Marcus departed. Her role as a founding board member of the K-9 Corps was just commencing. Marcus stood at the periphery near the workshop, his hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jeans. He still wore the brown leather jacket over a plaid flannel shirt. He was not a director nor a CEO. He was the founder, the builder. A small, energetic blur of motion darted past his legs, accompanied by giggling. "Luna, come back here," he called, his voice gentle. "Nope," she exclaimed, a word she had recently adopted. Luna, close to 3 years old, was a whirlwind of dark hair and firm opinions. Possessing her father's determined gaze, she ran onto the lawn, chasing a butterfly. A gray and white shadow detached itself from Marcus's side and trotted after her. Ghost, now nearly 7, had a muzzle lightly dusted with gray, and his movements were more deliberate, more stately. He was no longer merely a companion. He was a guardian. He did not chase Luna. Instead, he escorted her, positioning himself between her and the small gathered audience, his eyes constantly scanning. Luna laughed and wrapped her arms around the dog's thick neck. He patiently endured the embrace, then nudged her gently but firmly back towards her father. On the platform, Deacon commenced the ceremony. Quote, 2. Deacon's voice boomed across the lawn. It was the voice of a drill instructor. You arrived with nothing but your ghosts, and you encountered dogs who were equally broken. Shelter dogs, second chances, dogs that no one else wanted. He gestured towards the 5 dogs sitting attentively at the heels of their handlers. They were alert, healthy, and focused. The world believes we saved them, Deacon continued, his voice softening. But you know the truth. We do not save them. They save us. They provide us with a new purpose, a reason to rise each morning, to earn their loyalty. Today you are not merely a veteran. You are a canine handler. You have a purpose. He consulted his list. Sarge, Deacon announced, referring to a tall, lean man with haunted eyes whom Marcus recognized from the local VA. You came to us. You wouldn't even meet my eye. Now look at me. The man's chin lifted. Quote, 8. A kennel technician released a young black Labrador. The dog bounded forward, not towards Deacon but directly to Sarge, sitting perfectly before him, gazing up with an expression of pure, unadulterated devotion. The man's stoic facade crumbled. He reached down, and the dog pressed its head into his hand. The ceremony proceeded, one by one. Each man was paired with a dog. Each reunion represented a quiet, potent eruption of healing. Finally, Deacon addressed the assembly. And now, he declared, the man who made this all possible, the man who, well, he's the CEO, our founder, Marcus Donovan. The applause from the small crowd echoed loudly in the valley. Marcus disliked this part. He walked to the front, standing beside Deacon. He looked at the 5 men. He looked at the 5 dogs. He looked at Danielle Hoover, whose eyes were glistening with tears, a smile gracing her face. He took a breath. Deacon handles all the talking, Marcus said, his voice quiet, eliciting a few chuckles. I'm just the builder. Arthur Pendleton, the man who left me this ranch. He wrote in a letter that I was a soldier who knows how to build. For a long time, I believed he was mistaken. He glanced towards the workshop, his sanctuary. When I arrived here, I was adrift. I was hiding. I had been given everything, yet I felt I possessed nothing because I lacked a mission. He turned his gaze to the 5 new handlers. That feeling, that imposter syndrome, that guilt, it doesn't vanish simply because your life improves, he stated, his voice resonating with a raw honesty that silenced the crowd. It dissipates when you have a purpose, when you have a reason to rise that transcends yourself. He gestured towards the dogs. This is a foundation. That's all I constructed. You men and these dogs, you are the purpose. They are your mission. You are theirs. You saved each other. Thank you for saving me, too. Congratulations. He quickly stepped back as the applause resumed. Deacon clapped him on the shoulder with a firm, approving gesture. Not bad, Coop, he murmured. The ceremony concluded, and people began to mingle. Mrs. Watson had arranged a table laden with lemonade and cookies. Marcus moved away from the crowd, returning to the lawn, heading back towards his workshop. He simply needed a moment. The speech had taken a toll on him. He sat on the grass, the mountains forming sharp silhouettes against the cerulean sky. "Throw the ball, Ghost!" Luna ran up, clutching a slimy, well-chewed tennis ball. She tossed it with a wobbly 2-foot arc. Ghost, with a long-suffering sigh, retrieved the ball, brought it back, and politely dropped it at Marcus's feet. "No, silly doggy," Luna giggled. "For me." Ghost looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded. The dog picked up the ball and dropped it for Luna. Marcus watched them. A small, perfect circle of life. His daughter, his dog. "Mr. Donovan." Marcus looked up. It was Sarge, the tall, slender man from the ceremony. His new black lab, Hope, remained by his side, her tail in motion. "Sarge," Marcus greeted, rising to his feet and brushing his hand on his jeans. "Congratulations." The man, tough with tattooed arms, had a trembling voice. He gazed at his new dog, then back at Marcus. "I was where you are. I was in my car. I read about this place. I thought it was a joke." "It's not a joke." Quote. 10. "No, sir. It's not." Sarge appeared overwhelmed. "That speech you gave about purpose, that's the first time anyone got it right." He extended a calloused and trembling hand. I wanted to say thank you." Marcus clasped his hand. It was a firm, steady grip, the grip of a fellow soldier. "You're welcome. Now you have the watch." Sarge simply nodded, his eyes brimming. He couldn't articulate further. He merely squeezed his dog's shoulder. Hope looked up, her tail thudding, and licked his hand. Marcus stepped back, granting him his moment. He observed Sarge and his new partner heading towards the kennels. He then saw Danielle Hoover, animatedly conversing with Deacon. His gaze shifted to Mitchell Vaughn, already engrossed in his phone, likely managing Valerie's latest legal complexities. Finally, he noticed his own small family. Luna, having abandoned her pursuit of the ball, was now attempting to clamber onto Ghost's back. The large dog had resigned himself to it, lying down, an uncomplaining, noble gray and white rug for his diminutive alpha. Marcus Donovan stood bathed in sunlight, his back toward the workshop that had once served as his sanctuary. He was no longer an imposter. He was no longer in hiding. He was a builder, and he was home. The narrative of Marcus and Ghost serves as a reminder that even when the entire system falters, the steadfast loyalty of a single good soul, be it human or animal, can be the sole bulwark against the encroaching darkness. It illustrates that a mission isn't merely assigned, it's meticulously constructed from shattered fragments to guide others back to their own safe havens. We trust that this tale of resilience and purpose has resonated with you. Should you believe in second chances and the unbreakable connection between a veteran and his K9, we extend an invitation to join our community by subscribing. We would be honored if you would share this story and kindly inform us in the comments which aspect of their journey moved you the most. Your support enables us to persist in this endeavor. The subsequent story awaits you. Simply select the video that has just materialized on your screen.